Hi guys, I'm Angie, and for my civil rights activist, I chose Ruby Bridges. She was a 6 year old who actually went to school, uh, to an all white school. She had to be escorted by federal marshals, and so for a whole year, she pretty much got death threats and stuff. So like that's kind of it. But through these questions, you'll kind of get the history of that. Um, what are her values? She values tolerance, respect, and appreciation of all differences. Why or how she became a civil rights activist? She was the first African American child to integrate into an all white public elementary school in the South. She became a civil rights activist later in life after her brother, I think they said his name was Malcolm, got shot and he died because of like drug related stuff. She actually ended up building the Ruby Bridges Foundation, which promoted the values of tolerance, respect, and appreciation of differences. They hope to end racism and prejudice, and something that I really like is her motto. So her motto is racism is a grown-up disease and we must stop using our children to spread it. And I love that because I really do believe racism is taught by our parents. So if your parents are like racist or like they're showing you stuff and they're not telling you like, "Hey, don't be racist," or like they're not like making you aware of what racism is, they're not helping. Like they're just making it worse. So that's why I really like the motto. Who they help. So they promote equal opportunities for children and cultural understanding through the arts, education, and community service. She does school visits and special events where she'll go talk to the students or to like a big group of people, and she inspires them to chase their dreams. No matter how big or small, it's she wants you to chase your dreams, and she also wants you to stand up for what is right. So if you believe something is right and in your heart you know it's right, but somebody or some like a group of people are telling you it's wrong, who are they to be telling you it's wrong? They're nobody. You know what you believe in, and if you know it's right, just keep doing that. Like, even if it gets other people mad, that's fine. Um, why did you pick the civil rights activist to study? So last semester I took a history class, and in the history class they kind of talked about Ruby Bridges, but like they didn't really like go into detail about her, so it was just a brief little thing about her. So when we had to choose a civil rights activist, I felt like she was someone I wanted to kind of get more information about. And I feel like she's not as well for me. She's not as well known as Martin Luther King Jr. or Cesar Chavez. Because she had to be strong at a young age. She was only 6 when everything happened, and she didn't realize. I was reading. She didn't realize she was being discriminated against until actually when she was older. So when people were throwing stuff at her, she thought it was like if she went to Mardi Gras where they start throwing like beads and all that. Like that's what she thought. So she thought it was kind of like she was famous. I mean, she knew something was wrong because for a full school year, she was the only one in the class. There was nobody in the class. Um, all the parents took their kids out of the school. The teachers didn't want to teach her. Only one teacher stayed to teach her. And so for a full school year, it was just her and the teacher, like just those two in the whole class. Do you have anything in common with this person? The only thing I have in common with this person is that she's a girl who values tolerance and respect like I do. If I was her age, if I was when I was 6, I don't think I would be able to handle everything she handled. Like I don't think emotionally I would have been ready for that. So I do I look up to her. Like that's a lot to take in. I don't know if I can do death threats and all that stuff. Like that's just crazy. Um what values did the activist hold? When she was 6, she was forced to be brave and initiate desegregation in New Orleans public schools. She got death threats. She was being bullied, but that didn't stop her from being brave and giving up because not only was she being bullied by the other students, she was being bullied by, school officials, full-grown adults were over here telling her stuff like that's not even her fault. Uh, Although she wasn't treated well, she still showed respect to everybody around her, and she put up with the bullying for so long, so that shows that she had a high tolerance. Um, Explain what contributions a person made to our nation. What is different because of what they did? Because of Ruby Bridges, we now have desegregated schools, so everybody can go to school in the same place. There's no such thing as only white people can go here, anything like that. She put up with being the only kid in her class, getting death threats, having to be escorted by federal marshals for a full school year. Like, that's a lot. And then I was also reading that she even had to eat lunches by herself, and she wasn't allowed to play on the playground because nobody wanted her there. So it was so bad, she actually stopped eating lunches, and she was getting nightmares in the middle of the night where she had to go to speak to a therapist because it was just like hurting her emotionally. And then the teacher actually ended up having to eat lunch with her every day because they just had to make sure she was eating and like she was doing okay. The next year, the parents kind of got over everything, so everything was dying down. So kids were allowed to be in the same class as her, so it was like she did have other kids in her class, and they actually had higher numbers of the black students enrolling into that school. So it was already making a difference by her second year. And like I said, everything died down, so she didn't have to have federal marshals with her by the second year. How can you extend the work of this activist in your own life? I feel Ruby Bridges should be more known these days, especially with everything going on in the world. All she wants is to end racism, but as we know, that still hasn't happened, and it's already 2021. Still racism in the world, sadly. By teaching the students the hardships she had to go through at such a young age, maybe it'll help them realize that bullying isn't okay, and racism is not okay. And if it wasn't okay back then, it's still not okay now. So, I mean, I feel like, because we still have bullying and we still have racism, I think this would be a good lesson to, like, teach the kids. Yeah.